My friends, it is good to be back, and I'm glad you could join me. Today I got in my hands a 6-inch long block of basswood, and it is 2 inches by 2 inches, 6 inches long, 2 inches by 2 inches. I'm going to do a bigger carving today. I plan on doing a graybeard from the video game Skyrim.
I used to be an adventurer like you, and I took an arrow in the knee.
I'll pop up an overlay here on the left, and you can see this is what the character looks like in the game, or one of the characters. The graybeards are a faction in the game. So it's a thick gray robe, some details on it, and we're not going to go for an exact replica. This is going to be an interpretation of it, kind of a caricature version in that Scandinavian style carving that I like to do so much. The only thing to take away here on the drawing is where the shoulders are and the head and beard. That's the biggest thing that we're looking for there. Before I get started, I need to put a thumb wrap on. I like to use my left thumb as a fulcrum to push the knife blade through, and that can really wear that thumb out, so I wrap it in this black finger tape just to make it easier on me when I'm making those big cuts and pushing real hard with that thumb. Now, you don't have to use a larger 2-inch by 2-inch block. If you've got an 1.5-inch block, 1.5 inches will work just fine. Since it's about 25% smaller, just go 25% shorter. I'm doing a 6-inch block, so do a 4-inch tall block on a 1.5 by 1.5. As you can see, I'm taking off all the corners. It's a bigger block, so having those sharp edges there can just tire out your hands a little bit rougher. So if we take those off right off the bat and smooth it out a little bit, it is a lot easier to work with. I've got the video at 2x speed because this carving takes a good bit. You'll be able to pause it, of course, at wherever you need to catch what you need to see, but this is going to be a 60-plus minute carving here. Now, start on the left and right sides of the hood, sweeping cuts going in on the side and out of the top, as you can see there, to make the shoulders and the sides of the head. We do that on both sides, and you want to compare and contrast, make sure you're keeping it even. Take your time and check it from the top, check it from the sides, just to make sure you're staying relatively close to what you're wanting. This is just the rough out portion, right? So we're working fast, we're working quick. Anything we do, we can still fix mistakes on. On the top here, I'm going to draw a line between these two corners so I can keep my center and understand where it is as I get further in, because once I start carving the front and the back off, I'm going to lose track of where the center of that block is. So that's what we're doing here. Taking off much of the front to bring our face in, because our face isn't going to be out really far. It's going to be in farther. I'm going to do that a bit here till we get about there. And do the same thing on the back. And we'll do both the top and the bottom of the back side here, because the back is going to be a lot smoother than the front is. There'll be more detail in the front, something like this. Now you see that wood grain starting to split as I'm going this direction, but that's okay here because we're just roughing it out. So I can still smooth that out after the fact. And even if it does splinter a little bit, it'll be just fine. Just get some larger chunks off here. While I'm back here too, I'm just taking off all the extra wood on the back, all the saw marks, right? All the smooth surfaces from where the block was cut out the sawmill. I'm just gonna rough those up with the knife. That way I don't have to worry about them later if any of them wind up being on the outside of the carving, because those areas of the carving where the blade of the saw touched are going to take stain and paint differently than the ones that are cut by a knife. So we want to make sure we get it every surface of the carving touched by that knife. And you don't have to just use a roughing knife on this. This is a number 3 KCT, a Krishex Carving Tools gouge. It's very shallow bevel, right? But it's a fantastic, nice wide gouge. It's about an inch and a half maybe wide. And what I use this for is for roughing up those flat surfaces with the saw marks. I can get a lot of wood off here relatively easily, and I think sometimes even easier than using a rough out knife. It's one of the first tools I got past my rough out and detail knife was this number 3 gouge, specifically for doing this type of thing, because I like these Scandinavian style carvings and I like to get all those saw marks off. So this was a very neat tool for me for a first investment past those original tools. And I'm just going to use this to rough up the left and right side here. It's the same thing if you're doing it with a rough out knife, as I showed you a moment ago, or using this gouge. Either way, these are both just wood cutting tools, and you cut the wood with whatever tool you want to use for any given situation. In this video, I'm going to get out a lot of tools just to show you how I might use them, but everything we're doing here could be done with a knife. It doesn't have to be done with any special tools or special gouges. It's just those extra gouges can make things a little bit easier on you. You can do things a little bit fancier and a little bit easier to control. So get rid of those hard lines along here. And now that I've showed you how to use that KCT tool, I might actually speed the video back up to 2x speed from this 1x speed again. So why am I carving a graybeard? I like video games, that's why. And I spent a lot of time playing Skyrim, and carving some of the video game characters I've played before just seems like a lot of fun. So now I'm just going to keep taking off some of these saw marks here along the front of the carving. We're losing most of our drawings already. Most of the stuff we drew on there, just taking all that off, getting all the saw marks gone. We don't need those drawings now that we got the shoulders in place where we wanted to. It's just a gauge to use to figure out, okay, what are our proportions going to be? Where are those shoulders going to be at? And if the shoulders are there, is the rest of the carving going to make sense? That's why I was drawing that on there. And you've got to be willing to change things when you're carving. Be willing to look at your carving and say, what needs to happen next versus what did I plan on happening next? All right, there we go. Let's get back the knife out and take those hard corners off in the front here. Get those smoothed out more like we have the back. Right there. We're splintering a little bit in the wood there, but that's okay because we can clean it up afterwards. And just taking those rough corners off the edges again. And there we go. So a very basic rough out. Someone might do this on a bandsaw. We just did it with a knife pretty quickly, pretty easily. Smooth that out a little bit. I bounce around a lot when I'm carving. So now we're going to do some drawing again. Now we'll put the arms on the left and right here, and they're going to come down to nice big baggy sleeves. The hood are going to be up here. We want the hood to overhang his face. We don't want to see the eyes. We just want to see the nose and have the hood down over the eyes. Gives him that mysterious look. We're going to take off that section in the back, round that over, and we'll put a big beard on here, and that's a bit too big, so we're gonna get out the eraser and fix that. You gotta be willing to change things as you go. Like I said, it doesn't always work out the first time. Figure out what you need to change. Let's bring the top of that down, make this face a bit smaller than I was going for there. Now we got room to bring the top of the hood down more towards the nose. That's where our beard will be. Still be a large beard, but it won't be as big. Only the beard taking up half the body. And there we go. And this stuff doesn't have to be on here. It just gives me a guide I can use to start carving towards. So I'm going to start carving towards now those lines I just drew. Right, like so. And rounding the head off a little bit as I come forward. Let's carve the front of that head off. Big chunks off the back of the head here. We bring that further forward. Take a look at the overlays of the finished product in the bottom left and right of the screen, and you can see what we're going for here with curving that hood in towards the head, down along the front, up along the back. You can see exactly what we're trying to do. It's all about playing it by ear, watching what you're doing, seeing what the next step is. Here I'm taking off that end grain there at the top, bringing that side of the head in a bit more, bring this side of the head in a bit more. Take a look at it from the front. A little too thick, we take off a little bit more. Now here I'm using that paring cut. Keep the thumb out of the way down below, and you can just peel that stuff right off. This is where you're going to find out how sharp your knife is, because a sharp knife is going to have no problem cutting right through that end grain. And a dull knife is going to have a lot of problem. If you sense that it's dull, stop what you're doing, strop your knife. A stropped knife is the key to a good wood carver. People stop wood carving and they quit early because they don't know how to properly maintain a knife. And there are a lot of videos out there on maintaining a knife by Doug Linker, Alec Lacasse, a whole bunch of others. watch one, please. Educate yourself in that process and keep your knife well stropped. Okay, that's working out pretty good, even on the shoulders. Just round that out a bit more there. Now, since I'm going to be swapping between knives a bit, I'm going to take a moment to talk about the knives that I have here. So this is a detail knife. I've been using a rough out knife. A detail knife just had a smaller blade. It is still a straight blade, like the one that I was using, but it's just smaller. And this one is an upsweep detail blade. The knife blade on this one curves upward slightly, so you can see it compared size-wise. They're all three made by Beckwith Forge, who's a knife maker on Instagram. This upsweep curves up as it cuts, and this is a straight blade, which does not. And they have very similar handles, very similar profiles, so how do I keep track of where the blade's at? I mark the back of these knives here, little V-cuts, so I can index the knives without thinking, because I don't want to be putting my thumb on what I think is the spine of a blade, because one is curved in the back and one is not, and then press my thumb into the sharp edge, right? So I want to be able to index easily, quickly, without thinking, and all my knives have those little hash marks at the back, so I can quickly index my knife for when I'm carving without thinking, and not accidentally put my thumb into the back of an upsweep blade. Now we're working on the hood again. We're going to carefully carve this hood out, and you can see I'm carving lower than the line because I realized that this hood needs to come down more. Look at the overlay in the lower left. You'll see what I'm talking about. The hood comes down along the top there. So I'm going to take a big chunk off here on both sides, and then in the middle, create that effect, because it can come down over the eyes like a mysterious hooded figure, right? In carving this guy, you want to get that initial cut nice and deep, and then just going to clean this hood up a little bit more, round that edge off. All right, but we got that initial line nice and deep, and then we're going to carve into it and make sure the tip of the blade gets to the cut but not past it. If you get past it, you're just going to wind up roughing up the underside of that hood, which is something you're going to have to clean up later. And if you do, that's okay. We'll clean it up. I spent a lot of time working on this face because this is the focal point of this little carving. People are going to see that hood here, and they're going to be looking right in there for those hooded eyes set back in there. But we're not going to have any eyes. We're going to get this deep enough that we've got just shadow there and a big nose, and it's going to create that neat effect you see in the lower left there on the overlay, because that's the finished product. That's what we're going for, right? Now I'm using a, like I said, a straight cut detail knife here, but it doesn't matter what type of knife you use. You can wood carve with an X-Acto knife or a utility knife or a fixed blade knife like I'm using. You can use a larger blade, a shorter blade. I've heard other carvers talk, and they've said that every rough out blade has a detail knife on the end of it. That's absolutely true. It's a sharp blade is all you're needing, all you're looking to use. As long as the knife is sharp, you're going to keep being able to make cuts. Those dull knives are where people quit carving. Alrighty, now we're going to start putting the nose in right about there. Just a flat stop cut, and then we're going to create some depth underneath it. So we're just going to keep taking a little wood out underneath it to get us some depth. And you may need to shift the carving around to get the right angle for your cut. Play with it, see what works best for you. Right there is about some good depth. Now, let's see here. Use a brush, wipe things away, get things out of there. That is good. That is good. Now we're going to put a little angle on the left side and cut up to it. A little angle on the right side and cut up to it. And I'll give you a close-up of that here in a second, so you can see what I'm talking about. Right there, two little angles, left and right. It's going to be the edges of our nostrils, like so and like so, and then up underneath it, like that. Now we're going to use a gouge. I'm going to use one of these Swiss-made tools, a file gouge, and it is a, what size is this? There we go, and focused. It's a number 8 little U-gouge from File Swiss-made tool. And you don't have to use this. You could just use a knife to do a curved cut for the nostrils. But this little U-gouge just makes it a little bit easier. I'm just going to push straight down on this corner here. Right there where that corner starts to go up. The right side of this gouge is going to go. I'm just going to push straight down. And do the left side as well. And those should just get knocked out nice and easy. And there, we got a couple nostrils. Now, we're going to do the top part of the nostrils. Now, before I do, let me draw that on there, show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little line, like so, on each side. And that'll give the nostrils some depth on the outside edge. Straight cut, curved, going straight in. Going straight in and curving around like so. Now I'm going to V-cut that a little bit by putting an angle in and go right towards the base of that cut. Same thing on the left and right. Try to chip out the wood on the upper right of it. Just get that out of there to give some depth to that nose. Same thing on the other side. Again, reference that overlay on the lower left and you'll be able to see what I'm doing, what we're going for. I use this gouge to put a little lines on either side of the nose and then snap those out. Now, up underneath this hood, it looks very rough. And I'm going to spend some time smoothing that out here. You can use many tools to do that. You can use a skew. You can use this detail knife I've got, straight blade or an upsweep, and all of them have different uses depending on what you're trying to do. One particular cut might be easier to be done with a straight knife, like so. Try to get the right angle on this. Or it might be easier to smooth things out with a gouge on the left or right side, however you want to. Just take your time, clean up underneath this hood, make sure you got a lot of depth there above the nose. That's what's going to create that shadow effect where the light doesn't get to as easily. It gives it that mysterious look. So I'm just going to keep spending some time here. It's kind of rough in there, so now I'm taking that knife to smooth out the inner side of the hood. Use my brush to brush away the little bits. Still pretty rough in there. You see how it looks? So just same thing on this side. It's hard to get the right angle on the knife and the carving. Just play with it. See what you can do. If you're not too sure about a cut, you're like, I don't like the way that's going to go, then don't do that one. Move it a different direction. Here I'm using this upsweep blade now. The upsweep moves up and away, so it lets you get a little more detail in with the way that blade is shaped. But let's try this skew knife. Now, skew is just a sharp edge on a stick, basically, kind of like a spear almost. This is an angled blade that you can use to just push up in there and get into places that you might not be able to get with your knife blade. Now, I could do this with the knife, but I'm just showing you how to use it. I can use this U-gouge to smooth out areas up in here too. It's just a different tool that you can use. You could do the same thing with a knife, or you could try smoothing it out with another tool. All these tools have their own uses. They make all these jobs that you're doing, all these little details, a little bit easier to have multiple tools at your disposal. So that's all we're doing, just smoothing out that inside of that hood to make it look a little bit better. Take your time, do it right. Okay, our face is looking pretty good for the upper half, at least from the nose up. The hood's a little bit fat, so we're gonna take that knife and smooth out the left side. Right side, we're just gonna shave it down, make it thinner. It looks a little fat. Then down this top here and kind of curve that cut, a little upsweep to it. That way it looks like there's an angle on the hood, and smooth that top corner off because that's too sharp of an edge. I love these cut marks on the hood, and after we polish those up with the buffing wax, it's going to look fantastic. I'm going to smooth this out to the edge of the hood. Well, it's not too blocky looking. Do the same thing here in the back, take a little more of that out. And on the right side, our left side here. And then keep rotating it, taking a look. Do you like the way it looks? Do you need to take away more? What do you need to do? A little bit at a time. Take away more right here in the back. Bring that in right through there. Kind of curve it up from the back of his shoulders to the back of his head. He's leaning a little forward. There we go. That's looking a lot better, a lot thinner. more head-shaped under a hood. So, I like it. Little work area cleanup. Those chips will start to bother me if they're all just sitting sprawled out all over the place. But that is getting to be quite a large pile of chips. Look at that. All just from this carving so far. So we're doing pretty good. Making progress. Now we got most of the hood done, the nose, but we still need to add in some cheeks and a beard. So cheeks are just going to be a little curved line, left and right side, right to the base of the nostrils. Our beard is going to come out of the edge of the hood here and down and around here. Just take your time penciling things in. Penciling things in allows you to let you get a good look at it before you cut and see how it's going to look. It's kind of a measure twice, cut once type of thing. There we go. That'd be a good mustache right there. A little droopy mustache. I like it for him. We're going to adjust this base here to be a little more square. We're going to come down with it. And this is not the way the graybeards are in the game, which you can see on the overlay there. But we're not going for an exact representation. We're going for a little stylization here. Okay, so we're squaring that beard off because he doesn't have a barber. He's just kind of cutting the bottom of his beard when he does trimming. So we're going to start with the beard here. We're going to angle the knife, coming straight in a little bit, not from the side, straight in. That's what we want the edge of the beard to look like. And they'll come in from an angle to V-cut, so to speak, or stop cut that bit out. Around this bottom a little bit over here, like so. Nice and deep with that cut. And a little bit right there, take that little bit out underneath the hood there. And then we'll cut up to that point. From down here, we'll do that too. Just creating that line of the beard there. Put a little depth to it. This side, don't like coming down, we're going to go up. That's with the wood grain. Try to cut downhill on the wood grain. And what does that mean, cutting downhill? The wood grain is going up and down through the wood, right? And as you cut, you'll be able to tell which direction the wood grain is going and whether or not your knife is tearing or slicing through. Pay attention to that and you'll get cleaner cuts. You want to rotate your carving and try to cut from the downhill direction where you're cutting through the grains and not between them. Just going to keep taking out more and more around this beard, adding more depth to it. The deeper you go with your cut, usually the better a carving looks. Too shallow and it doesn't look as professionally done. And you'll see a lot of new carvers do that. They just leave things a little bit too shallow, and I'm probably guilty of it as well. Deeper cuts and deeper cuts. Keep trying to go for deeper cuts. You don't want to take too much out at once. Do a little bit at a time, but get deeper and deeper, deeper and deeper. We're taking this front down now. We're taking that texture out around the beard. So we got to even it out on the base here because we don't need it coming out at his legs. The legs are going to be in further. So, and take a look at that. That's pretty good. A little bit more. Get it deeper. Every chance you can get. How deep can you go? Like Limbo. How low can you go? How deep can you get that beard? How deep can you go? To touch a little bit on tools again while we carve his beard out. If you look on the left there, you'll see a lot of knives. In the background there on the right, a lot of gouges. That is pitfall of wood carving. You will continually try to get more tools. More and more tools for that just the right carving. We're just smoothing out the base of that beard right there. Just kind of angling that down, cleaning up those edges. Spend time cleaning up your edges. If you don't, they just look absolutely terrible. But you can take a look at this one, like along this edge here. You can see I got a little too overzealous. I got that knife into that edge, but we can just slice that edge off a little bit. Clean that up. And it's like I never did. Now it's like I never made that mistake at all. That's the kind of thing you gotta keep in mind. You can take away more, but you can't add more. We're just gonna keep on shaping that beard a little bit up here. And we're gonna do more shaping to it later when we come back in with a gouge to add some texture to it, but Here's the top half of that mustache. A couple lines like that. And then we'll take out the wood above it up to the edge of the hood. And like I said, look at that overlay in the bottom left. You can see what I'm doing. And I might use a skew here. Get that edge on the cheek there. But again, you can do that with a knife. Or there's work here that, like, it might be better to do this with a knife, but, you know, I'll just go ahead and do it with the skew. Why not? I can just make this line a little bit bigger, like so. Still just a cutting implement, you know. I can take that edge out with the knife. Doesn't matter. You can do all this with the knife, all with a skew. You can just use the right tool. Makes the job a little bit easier if you have the right tool, but as you're learning, most of the stuff you're going to do is with the knife, and you'll learn a lot of tricks with the knife, and you'll be loving life even more as you get more tools for your repertoire, more tools for use. Carve this thing here, right along the top of that mustache. I'm just cleaning up the mustache right now, just trying to make it look a little bit better along the top edge, because it's hard to get in there and provide depth because of how tight that area is. You see me shift around trying to find the right implement to get in there, but I could just do it with a knife if I change its direction. So here we're going to put the mouth in, the bottom of the mustache, I should say. Just a curve going straight in, and then we'll cut it out like so, being careful not to go past the line or a stop cut. We want to get up to it, just not too far past it. And if we don't get far enough down, we're cutting deep, then we'll get that little chips left to be over. But we can fix those. Just spend a little time going back and forth. Provide a little depth there. Curve that edge of that mustache down a little bit, like so. Like that. That's looking pretty good. I can use that gouge a little bit if I want to. I can just brush it away. Doesn't matter. I swap back and forth between tools when I can, and you don't have to. That's all I'm saying here. Okay, with the mustache carved in, we're going to start working on our arms. We're going to have it curve forward a little bit because no arm hangs perfectly straight. Usually they're pivoted up a little bit at the elbow, just slightly. And we're going to give some nice big thick sleeves on here. They're going to hang down. So the angle on the top of the arm will be a little bit more sheared than the angle on the bottom, like so. Right? Looks pretty good. And we might actually bring it a little bit higher. It's a little bit too far down because this is going to be like a real arm. We put too far down, he's got like monkey arms. We don't want that. He's not dragging his fist in the ground as he walks. So, is that even? That's even. We'll bring that arm up like so. I love using those overlays to really illustrate the point with the finished carving right there. We can see it. So reference that as needed. And see what we're going for. So we're going to start by taking off some wood around these arms, I think, for our next step. So let's smooth that out a little bit. And then we'll do some stop cuts underneath those sleeves, I think. Yeah. So let's start here, but we're not going to angle it. Let's go straight. And we'll angle it after we remove a lot of this wood down beneath there. And we'll try to transfer it to the same side, same height, just double checking. Stop cuts. Make sure you get some depth to it and then cut up the line. And then flip it around and we'll do it again. And then we'll take out the section here in the bottom, straighten that out, and that'll give us some depth to those sleeves, just like so. And that looks good enough, so let's do the other side. Stop cut again, and then bring that down at the same depth all the way down. And we'll probably smooth out those edges. That's an interesting pattern of the wood there too, isn't it? That brown line there. That'll be really neat when we get it done. Hopefully we have enough wood left to save it. We'll see. Little paring cut there to smooth it out, and for this line too, and that line, smoothing them out. All right, now we're starting to get some depth here on the arms. Let's go ahead and get those sleeves lined up properly because we got an angle to go upwards on. So let's do that here. Stop cut and then cut up to it. Nice and easy. Now remember, I'm not slicing with my hand, I'm pushing with a thumb. I'm not just using my right hand and pushing that knife in. I'd cut myself that way. But my left thumb is doing all the work here. And I'm not going to push it into my hand. That's how I can cut towards myself without hurting myself. New carvers should absolutely be wearing gloves though. Until you get good at this, you're probably going to cut yourself. I've cut myself more than a few times learning. But you don't have to. I cut myself because I was stupid not wearing gloves. And now I've gotten to the point that I don't need the gloves because I'm more confident in my ability. That's looking pretty good right there. Look at that. Good lines. Now from the armpit down, we're going to go ahead and make a cut angled slightly in towards the face. Come on down, keeping in line with how the sleeve's going to go. Same thing on the right arm. Angle it from there. And then we'll start taking off on the inside there to provide that depth. And if I'm going to come from the bottom here, I'm going to need to stop right about here and come down from the top to meet it. And that's going to leave that a little bit rough. We can just smooth it out, take a little time. Cut those little pieces off. Smooth it out nice and easy. A little sweeping cut of action going on there. And just put some depth to it again. And little cuts, nothing huge, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. Now we're doing the same thing on the right arm, providing some depth there. It's easier to come down on these arms like this, but on the other side, it's hard to get that angle right if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, this side's gonna be the one that's harder for you. If you're right-handed, the other side is. Let's put some depth to it, and it's looking pretty good already. I got that deeper cut there. Smooth that out through here. Those rough edges done. And it's okay to bounce around a little bit when you're carving. Like, carve somewhere else if you need to. If you see a spot that needs to be fixed, like I can smooth it out right now while I'm seeing it, while I'm thinking about it, because you might miss it. All right, the back of the sleeve is going to go like so. We're going to angle this in towards the face and bring it right down. And bring it down from the top. Now my left thumb is doing the pulling there. My left thumb. So I'm going to cut right up to that. Left thumb doing the pulling. Not pushing with the right. Left thumb doing the pushing. Left thumb keeping control of that knife blade. Keep control of it at all times and you won't cut yourself. You'll know where the knife is going to go. You'll know where it's going to end up. Very important, especially as a newer carver, to develop the right technique when doing that. Same angle towards the face, the center of the carving, and then we'll carve down from the top. Starting to split a little bit there, but that's okay because we can clean it up through here. We don't need that little bit there, so we'll just go ahead and smooth that out. Smooth that out too. Right around that base. All right, we've made good progress so far, but we need to start adding details. Let's get an overlay up of what this robe is going to look like. So we're going to add, see that V-neck on the robe is underneath the beard. We can still do those rope features in the front here. So we can do these lines as the robe opens up here, like so. And this is a stylized version, so we're not going to be completely accurate, but we're going to get pretty close where people can tell when they're looking at it. Oh, that's the robe of a graybeard. Put a little curve there for that X-like thing. And bring those edges down here. I'm drawing nice and light first to get it even. That way I can erase easily if I need to. Then an outer edge for that line. And it continues around the back of the robe. Like so. Just like so. And then I'll draw this. That bottom part off, draw this all the way around the back of the robe, that trim along the base. We'll do some stop cuts to take that out down to this. So it'll be protruding a little bit along the bottom of the carving, just like that. That's gonna look great. Okay, and we're going to use some V-tools here, I think, to put those lines in. You don't get a lot of depth, we can just get a little bit, and with a V-tool you can kind of pick your depth. Draw those lines in a little bit heavier here. Perfect, just like so. And we'll get rid of the overlay. Now for this trim, we're going to use this number 12 V-tool, and it's a 60-degree V-tool, as you can see right there. And we're just going to trace this trim out here, like so, to draw that line in all the way up the beard. Now you don't have to use a V-tool for this. You can use a knife, draw that line, and then come from the other direction at an angle, and carve it out just the same. Does the exact same thing. See there? Not much of a difference there between using a knife or using a V-gouge. I'm going to use a V-gouge, just it's one pass rather than two, so it's going to be a little bit quicker. Just going to trace that on the way down, like so. Take all that out, go a little bit deeper there. With a V-tool, you can make this as deep or as shallow as you want to. Along those edges there, you can just keep going deeper, as deep as that V-tool will go. Just takes a little more effort to push it through. You can see it, 60-degree there. Nice and deep. I'm going to do the other side too. Try to keep it even all the way down, parallel with the initial line, and then we'll make some stop cuts along this bottom here. I prefer the stop cuts versus the V-tool along the back edge here. Just makes it a little bit easier, I think. And we're just going to continue that all the way around the back side, making sure we keep it parallel with the base, straight in, and then carve down to it, taking those chips out as we go, creating a little depth for the bottom trim of that robe, right like so. And you don't have to do one cut at a time before you trim it off. You can do multiple like this right there. 1, 2, 3, and then knock them off, cut them off, whatever you need to do. I want to smooth things down too in the back side here, coming down to that because we're making a sharper incline there, right there by the base of the robe. So we have to smooth this out a little bit, make that transition a little bit lighter, a little bit easier. We're getting around there. Let's just go ahead and continue that through and finish up this portion of trim. Take that V-tool back there and follow that line all the way down to the bottom. Now with this V-tool, we're still going to take a little bit out on either side of the V-tool to take that from a channel to more like a stop cut. So you're not saving a whole lot of work by using the V-tool, but you are saving a little bit because we're still going to go back over this area here and trim up around like so, right there. And like so, just to smooth this out on the inside portion of the robe. Coming down towards me because that's with the grain rather than against the grain. And I don't want to splinter through here because we're pretty shallow already on where we want to be, so we're not going to have a whole lot of room to keep removing wood. And that's something to keep in mind, where you can cut against the grain, where you maybe shouldn't. And that's one of the spots where I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't. That's looking a lot better. There we go. I'll tell you, this guy's going to turn out just pretty neat, I think. All right, so I'm just making that line a little bit deeper so I can get a little bit more depth to the inside of these robes, because the part on the left and right there, that's the outside of the robe, should be a little bit thicker than what the inside should be. The inside should be inside a little bit, just like wearing a jacket that's kind of open at the front. Same kind of thing. Trim it off the bottom, and we'll just keep working on this, getting more depth as we go, cleaning up our cuts like that. And that's looking a lot better. Now we're going to do the outside edge, so I'm going to put a little knife mark there that I can cut into, and then I'll start moving the outside edge. That way our trim pops out a little bit, not just the bottom, but going up and under the beard, just like that. Do the stop cut a little bit better there. Cut that out. Okay, now we still have to do the trim on the right side over here. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Right up like so. And we'll do this portion, and then once we get this finished up, we'll go ahead and start working on that fancy design that was inside of the robe. What I mean by that is that kind of a X-like pattern there in the middle of the robe, right there on the belly area. We're going to put that in there as well. There's a lot of other details on this robe that we're not going to do because we could just spend all day long adding detail to this guy. But we want to have it to be stylized. We're not going to do everything exactly the same as it would be. Enough that you can recognize it, and we'll call that good enough for this carving. Because this is going to still take us well over an hour to complete start to finish. Now I'm just trimming out that trim, rounding those edges a little bit because that way they're not square and rough. Cleaning things up. Every time you make cuts in any given area, once you get done, you gotta go through and clean it up, make it look pretty, make it look a little bit better. Spend a little time doing that, and the more you do that, the more people think you're carving at a level maybe beyond what you carve at. Most great carvers just seem to be people who are willing to be patient enough to fix all of their little mistakes and keep on working at it and keep on fixing things until they get finished and it's something that's magnificent. But it didn't look magnificent when they're partially through. Might look terrible, and they just spent enough time fixing it, getting it just right to make it look gorgeous. Get those chips out of the way, and then that's looking pretty good. I think we still need to trim up the back side here, so we're gonna some angled cuts right there around the trim edge on the base here of the robe. Get that right. We can also do it this direction here. You don't have to carve the exact same direction I'm doing all the time. You can do it however you want to, as long as you're getting the look that you like, achieving the desired effect. And carve in this direction. Flip it around. We've got options here. There we go. Just cleaning up that edge, making that edge right there where the trim and the body of the robe meet look good. And we'll use that tip like so. There we go. And just make sure you look around. Is there anything that needs to be cleaned up a little bit more? If so, go ahead and take care of that. I've said that often enough, haven't I? I'm going to say that all the time because that's what you're doing. That's what I'm doing. That's what, that's the ticket to making this thing look just right. Just right. So I'm just going to go around the carving now and clean up any rough spots that I see. We're getting close to having this thing done. Round off those hard edges on the elbows. And then we're going to put in some folds to the inside of the elbow. This cloth tends to fold up on the inside of the elbow, especially when it's slightly bent like we're going for. To achieve that, just a couple little V-cuts. And we're going to do that here in a little bit. Let's clean up the back of that robe a little bit, round that out. Do the other side as well. Now, if you do cut on one side, you want to make sure you transfer it. Do it on the other side as well. Okay, so this inside elbow here, that's what I was talking about. We're going to smooth it out down in the middle. And then right here on the inside of that middle part, we'll put some V-cuts. Use this detail knife. A little V-cut like so. Clean it up a little bit. And then another one right above it, angled slightly. And that'll put a little effect there, like the fabric is folded a little bit at the elbows. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Clean it up first. And then, there we go. And then we do little V-cuts right here. And then one above it too. Give a little fold look to that. robe arm, that sleeve, just like so. Looking fantastic, actually. So we still got to do detail work on the beard and put that design there in the middle and the stomach. And yeah, we need to do some more work on the hood too. But okay, so we're gonna make a trace, as you can see on the overlay on the left, this little pattern here onto the wood. Trace the pattern so we get us something to follow with our knife, and then we'll darken those lines a little bit through here. And then we'll just take out some chips there. Basically a chip in the top middle, chip in the right middle, left middle, and then carve down to it along the bottom there. Do all three sides, then cut up, and then cut from the top down, and you'll have that out of there in no time. And then just repeat the process for the left side and the right side. Make sure you spend a moment to clean it up, make it look good. Don't leave it rough looking if you can help it. That's gonna work out just fine. And doing the right side and the bottom side as well. Stop cuts along the top. And then chip that out. Like so. And like that. And then our pattern is in there, and that gives us that quality we're looking for. And this is one of those identifying things on a graybeard that we're going for to make him look like the character, or one of the characters. Gets a faction. Yeah. There we are. Clean that edge up. Just taking my time. That's looking pretty good. Round off any hard edges you see. Like the insides of these lines here. Just take a knife edge to all of them. Round them off a little bit. Make them look good. Because remember, this is what takes a carving from good to great. Spending a little time on the details to clean things up. And as you get better, you'll notice more things you can clean up that you might not have noticed before. So a better carver than I is probably looking at that going, well, Johnny, why don't you clean this up? Why don't you clean that up? And maybe I'm not noticing what he's thinking about. I can clean up this bottom of the beard here real quick. There we go. Nice and pretty. Okay, now there's still more we can add in from our reference. So if we look back at our reference image, we can see that we need to add some cloth pauldrons here for his shoulders. Like so. And then we need to make a base for the hood to stop at. And those details will be a lot of what we need. The rest of them outside of his beard and adding some more detail to the beard. Alrighty, back to the knife works. We're going to make a stop cut along the base of the beard and then cut up to it, or cut down to it if that line looks a little rough. And we'll do that all the way around. Flip your carving around as needed to get the right angle on what you're trying to cut. Do a little draw cut there and pull out that bottom portion. The hood should be on top of the robe here. So you want to cut up to the hood and not down to it. Like so. See, that gives it the effect that the hood is on top, resting on this robe. Like so. Just like that. And then get that around, we'll do it here too, and then we'll cut those pauldrons in, coming up out from under the hood the same way. And again, you see me swapping knives. Use an upsweep blade there to get into that section a little bit easier. I like how an upsweep A little detail work really helps you get those cuts that you might need. It might be hard. There's going to be 2 slicing cuts down and then a good stop cut at the bottom. Curve it up like that. Pull out that side. Stop cut along the base of it to pull that stuff out, because this pauldron rests on top of the sleeve, so we cut up to the sleeve to give it that effect. But we cut up to the hood because the hood rests on top of the pauldron. And this will give it like an effect where the hood's on top of the pauldron, which is on top of the robe, cascading down his shoulder. The same thing on the other side, transferring cuts. Make sure you watch that pauldron to make sure you get it even from one side to the other. There we go. Just the same thing as we did on the other side. Put a little depth to it. Or more depth is usually a good thing. And looks like messing a little about there. Clean that up. And the pauldron on the left side is too tall, so let's cut that part out. I said to watch the height on them, and I didn't even do it myself. So now they're about even. Round that out a little bit more here. Round that side out as well, and on down, like so. Now there's not too much depth to these pauldrons. They're cloth pauldrons. They shouldn't be too high up off of the robe, but just a bit. Like so. There we go. Okay, with that section done, the last thing we need to worry about carving on is adding some detail to the beard. So I'm going to put a couple deep lines here, and you can use a V-gouge for this. And we're going to cut out the left and the right side of it to create these nice channels in the beard for hair, right? Do that here. A little V-cut at the bottom. Do the same thing on the other side. And I'm using a knife to do this, but just like before where I used a V-gouge, and I said you can use a knife, you can use a V-gouge to do this just as easily. Actually, a little bit easier probably than I'm doing, but I wanted to use a knife, so I'm using a knife. Now just those 2 lines really makes this beard pop a bit more. The more we add, the more we can give this beard a little character. On the side here, and then we'll continue it up. Carve out one side, carve out the other. Add a little waviness to the beard. Adding a little life to the character is what we're doing. A little bit of life. All in proper grooming techniques. Now that beard looks much better already, but we're going to do even more. We're going to do even more. We're going to take one of those U-gouges in a moment and add some more ripples to it. But you can't wait for that. Okay, well, we're going to do that with that number 8 U-gouge I've got. We're going to use that, and we're going to randomize this a bit. We're going to keep it in line with the lines we started already, and just add some texture to this beard. To the bottom of it too, as it rounds down and around in towards the robe. We get that section there. Up the mustache and up to the nose. Remember to keep in mind, how does the hair flow, right? It flows up towards the nose, on the beard, up towards the cheeks. So we can keep our lines in the same vein, doing the same kind of thing, same direction. And we don't have to make one continuous line, we make a couple small lines, have them overlap each other, have them cross each other a little bit. Randomize that, and the beard will look more natural. And already it's looking fantastic. Now this cut here kind of curves around, so we're going to make those cuts that get too close to it curve a little bit as well. Like that. Right here up underneath the mustache as well. And already that beard is looking a lot better. Make that section there a little bit deeper. Like we said, deeper is better. So we're going to carve a little bit more depth into that line there. Same for this one. Put a little V cut here at the bottom of it to open up that separation a bit. And take out a little bit more there. And put more gouge marks on the parts we just cleaned up. And we're creating depth to that beard. A real beard has a lot of depth, and we're just giving our wooden friend here the same treatment. Now that looks fantastic. All right, now the back here looks nice and smooth. So we're going to take a very shallow U-gouge and just add some lines. Kind of randomize it and just put some texture to that robe all around. And that texture will be a neat little thing that the wax can buff against. Create some lines, some texture here. It'll look nice and pretty when we finish this guy. And we're probably going to do a dark walnut stain. I really like that finish. Some more here coming up to the hood. And we're just doing this random. And this is not a deep gouge. It's nice and shallow. So just creating a little texture. Here on the back of the hood too, on these flat planes where the knife carved, we'll do one on each of these flat planes here. And just create a little texture there. A little depth. A little extra depth that we didn't have. And there we go. A little more right there. And there. And right now I'm just smoothing out a little bit of rough spots. Now I'm going to take him to the sink, give him a good scrubbing, and this is what you can see afterwards. I use a toothbrush, run them under water for about 2 to 3 minutes, and I scrub the carving real good with that toothbrush. Maybe 3 or 4 minutes. And it really cleans up the carving. All those fuzzies kind of go away. I just scrub the face and scrub the body. And he's nice and wet right now. So before I do anything else, I'm going to dry him off with a blow dryer. Dry him out a bit so that we can get to the next step right away, which will be the finish. Now you can tell from the texture of the carving right here that he's already dried considerably versus what he was. So he's not soaking wet. And we're going to take what is black walnut Danish oil in this jar. And we're going to apply it to the carving directly. And then wipe it down. And I'm going to use this pipe cleaner to apply. And then afterwards, we're going to take this paste finishing wax, natural, and we'll apply that to the carving afterwards, because we know that people are going to touch this thing. We want to seal it up with something so that we can take care of the carving. Now, for this, I use one brush for brushing away when I'm carving, and another brush that's dedicated only to buffing a carving with this paste natural finishing wax. So I have a second brush dedicated to that because there is wax in this brush, and you can see in the bristles how they're colored. So that's a brush specifically for this task. Now I have tried to apply this as thinly as I could, as thickly as I could, and it doesn't seem to make that much of a difference. So if I can, no, I can't fit him in there. So when it comes to applying this stuff, if I can fit them in the jar, I'll just dip them in there and then wipe them down. If I can't fit them in there, I will dip my pipe cleaner in there and wipe down the whole surface. I got the pipe cleaner dripping with this stuff so I can drip it in up underneath that hood, get it in every crevice right there, every crevice along the face, along the beard, and just wipe the whole carving down. And this is just an easy part to do, so we're going to speed this up a little bit. All right, 3x speed, and you can see that I just keep doing the same thing, wiping it down, wiping it in, I should say. I don't wipe the carving clean until I get the whole surface coated in the Danish oil. And he's already looking pretty good with that Danish oil on there. I really like the look of this finish. It is substantial and fantastic. And when you wax it afterwards, it really brings out a wonderful look. All right, so we slowed back down. And we're just going to dry him immediately. We're going to wipe him down, clean him off, all the excess getting rubbed right off. And I'll rub on it for a little bit, trying to get as much as I can out of there. The end grain up at the top it takes that stain in a lot better. So try to wipe that down a bit more because you're going to see it's uneven. But that's okay. I don't like that look. It looks like we forgot to put any of this Danish oil on the base. So we're going to go ahead and do that real quick too. Right there. And then we'll be able to process over to the paste finishing wax. There we go. Now it'll be one solid color. And take a look over the carving. Make sure there's no spots where you missed the Danish oil. Little specks. Always double check your work. Wipe that bottom down. Now the paste finishing wax is a very thick substance. I don't just apply it straight out of the can. I'm going to heat it up with a blow dryer, as you'll see in a moment. But before I do that, I'm just going to really quickly buff this guy a little bit. And there's already some wax in the brush a little bit, and you'll be able to see how pretty this end grain looks here at the top, the hood especially. Look at that already. Look at those lines, how they pop out. Isn't that fantastic? That's what we're going for. Minwax brand paste finishing wax, natural paste finishing wax. And after opening the can, it is a solid, almost, wax. So I'm going to use the hair dryer and we're just going to heat it up. And then once it's heated up, very easy to apply. And I'm just going to wipe it down on every bit of the surface with an old toothbrush. And this is not the same toothbrush I used to clean the carving when I was washing him. This is one that's dedicated again to the task of wax, because no matter what I do, I can't get all the wax out of the toothbrush. There's always a little bit of wax in this thing. Make sure you apply it thickly and heavily to the top and the bottom. It soaks into that end grain real easy, and you want to get it in there. And after we apply it to the carving, we're going to use the blow dryer again to heat the wax and hopefully let it seep into the wood a little bit. And when we do, I tell you, the sheen, the shine you can get after buffing this is absolutely stunning. It's beautiful. Now I'm wearing gloves here, not just because of the stain I just did, but because of this wax. It is a mess. It's sticky, disgusting, and I am slopping it on here because I want to heat it up and try to get as much of it as I can to soak into the wood. So I highly suggest having some gloves, but that's just from a cleanliness standpoint. And let's go ahead and speed things up again. Now with that done, we're going to take the blow dryer and heat up the carving, melting the wax a little bit. And then once we get a good bit of it melted, and you'll be able to see it on the surface as it changes color like so. And then we're just going to buff it. Buffing the whole thing. Spend some extra time on the end grains along the hood. That's where it can really shine. And yeah, we're just going to speed this up as well because this is a slow process. And that's what I love, that look right there. As we focused on that hood, you can see those facets that we carved into the planes with the gouge. All of it looking fantastic. So we're going to continue doing the same thing. Now, all in all, this is probably a 5-minute process of buffing the wax and checking, and then buffing and then checking, and heating it up and buffing. But you don't need to see that whole thing. So we're going to cut a little bit out of the end. I just want to make sure you get a good picture of what exactly I'm doing to get the effect that you see at the end of this video. And here we go. I had to add that sound. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below and tell me what else you think I should be trying to do. Should I be showing more carving videos? Do you want to see some videos on gouges and V-tools? Maybe talk about tools for a bit? Let me know. Either way, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and you guys have a great day.